This is video recording 1 for Melody Charbonneau.
Okay.
Okay.
So, it's been interesting with the parents since the Shane thing, because now, after the controlling aspect of, like, where they were, because, like, when the Shane thing first started, they were kind of like, okay, well, we don't want you to do this, please listen to our opinion. We don't exactly feel like God has directly told us that this isn't right, but we're not comfortable with it. And then it got, like, worse, and then they were saying, okay, well, we are telling you that you are not allowed to do this. If you do it, you're going to be sinning. And, oh, well, God has for sure told us. For sure. And I was like, that doesn't line up with what you said originally. Has God told you anything new? And it doesn't seem like God's told them anything new, so it doesn't really make sense to me that, like, I feel like they're altering their story now that because it's more intense to them. Like, they started feeling less in control, and so they got more controlling. And I just feel like at some point you have to teach your kids how to make their own decisions, and at some point your kids aren't always going to agree with you. And so I would really like if they would, like, realize that I'm not always going to make the decision that they would have made, or that they want me to make, more like. Not necessarily that they would have made, but that they want me to make. And that's okay, because it's not always a sin thing. Like, I'm not always, like, just because I'm not going to do it the same way they do it doesn't mean that I'm, like, a horrible person, but that's how they see it. Like, if I don't do it the way that they tell me to, then it's not the right way. Because if they pray about it and that's the way that they think it should be done, then obviously that's the only way that's, like, God's way, because they prayed about it. And I think sometimes they think that what they're thinking in their heads is, like, divine intervention from God, putting the little thought seed in their mind, and I don't think that's always what it is. I don't know, like, I think God can do that, but I don't think he is doing it every time Dad says something. Like, Dad seems to think that if Dad says it, it's God saying it through Dad, and it's the only good way, because Dad knows God, and God knows Dad, but I can't know God, or at least not to the same level, because I'm young, I'm a kid. Which, I don't feel like a kid anymore, and I don't think it should be so controlled.
So you're feeling frustrated because Dad's not letting you grow up and make decisions that he might not agree with.
Yeah. But a lot of the times, he will go to extreme lengths to, like, make me obey him and follow these rules, but the rules aren't even, like, I don't think they're important. Like, they're not biblically, like, it's not biblically wrong for me to do it. It's just kind of a preference. And then, since he is a control freak, like, that preference turns into a rule, and then if you break that rule, you're in trouble. And it's like, but then if you ask, oh, so this is a rule, he's like, no, it's not a rule, but if you don't do it, you're going to get in trouble, which is exactly what a rule is. Like, he told me that it wasn't a rule that we wear black pants to church. But if I don't wear black pants or a skirt or a dress to church, I will get in trouble and he'll be mad. That sounds like a rule. But if you ask him, he's told me it's not a rule, it's a preference.
So you're frustrated by the way that he confuses rules, preferences, and various other...
Well, I feel like it's his way of admitting that what he's doing is dumb. Like, because it's totally a rule. But he thinks it would be dumb if it was a rule, so he says it's a preference. Like, I feel like, at least I perceive it as his way of realizing that what he's doing is dumb, but he's still too prideful, and he still wants to have that rule because it's his preference, and so it stays for no reason. And I think it's so extreme for a preference, because I'll get in so much trouble over a preference. And so to me, that preference is a rule, but that rule isn't based off of anything that I don't understand it. I don't understand why it has to be so dramatic.
Okay. So you get a little frustrated or upset about the way that he makes these rules that aren't really rules, and they're just based on his preferences that don't really matter.
Yeah. Which I feel like is a lot of the rules. Like the Shane thing is because he was divorced. My dad isn't comfortable with it, but his divorce was not his fault at all. And in the Bible it says that his divorce was pardoned, I guess. And so, but just because Dad isn't comfortable with it and he doesn't have peace about it, therefore God is telling him that it is wrong and it would be a sin. But it's not a sin. And he'll admit that it's not a sin. But if I do it, it's a sin. But anyone else can do it and it's not a sin. But if I do it, he's gone to the level where he has told me that I'm not allowed to do it. And so if I do it, I'm sinning against him and God because I'm not obeying my parents. But there's no reason that it should be that big of a deal. Because he's uncomfortable with it.
Okay, so you're upset because you have to follow a different set of rules than what they have for the rest of the world.
And, yeah. And I feel like I have to do everything exactly how Dad wants it. Exactly how it was when he was my age. We're not allowed to talk on the phone more than 15 minutes because he, ages and ages ago, didn't, when the phone lines, you couldn't, the call wouldn't go through if somebody else was talking. So it made sense then. It doesn't make sense now. I have my own phone. I should be able to talk on my phone as long as I want to. And it's I understood the rule then, but why is it still here? And then, just how we're not allowed to wear pants that have, that are ripped or, distressed because Dad thinks that it makes it look like we don't have money. And it's in the 70s, when Dad grew up, it would make sense. But he has to realize that it's not the same time anymore. And it shouldn't matter. And it's just ridiculous that so many things have to be controlled. And it's the way he had it, or the way that he thinks. I have to do everything as if I'm mini Dad. And it's ridiculous, tiny little things have to be exactly the same. And it's if you don't follow it exactly the same, you're not doing it right.
So you're annoyed that you have to follow these archaic rules and stuff that he had when he was younger, or that made sense when he was younger, but don't make sense now.
Yeah, I feel if the rule doesn't really, if the reason you place the rule doesn't apply anymore, and there's no reason for it now, it's just tradition, why would you keep the rule? Just because it's tradition? That's dumb. I think Dad is very into tradition. He is always, he listens, around Christmas, he listens to the same 5 songs. He watches the old cowboy movies. He has the same haircut from when he was little. He still wears the same type of clothes. Every time we go to Ohio, we have to visit his old houses. He's very sentimental, and he's very, what is the word? I said it a little bit ago. But it has to be, the same.
Traditional?
Yeah. And he'll get in a routine. And he would rather stay in his little comfort zone routine than change anything. And even if there's no reason for a rule anymore, it's been a rule for the last couple years, so it stays. Even if that means that it's going to cause conflict in the family, the rule stays. And I think that's dumb. And I think if your kid is coming to you respectfully and proves the fact that your rule doesn't matter anymore, as a parent, you should be able to, be okay with that and say, okay, well, you're critically thinking and you're, I agree. You should have enough respect for yourself and your kid to actually listen to them. And if they're right, if there is no reason for a rule to stay, why is it still there?
So you're aggravated because you can't move past these old rules and things from the past that he still enforces now.
And it's like I'm a kid. Like, there's no, I have no control over my life except for what I can wear between not ripped pants and black pants at church. Anywhere in between there. I have control over that part of my wardrobe, but not that part. And then, oh no, you have to be home at 11. Like, I'm to an age where it shouldn't be so difficult. I feel like I have to jump through a lot of hoops just to survive.
So you feel very controlled in your life, and it's frustrating to you.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. And I feel like when you control something that much, like, I do not want to move out, but I feel like I have no control. And so it puts the thought in your mind of, okay, well, would I ever consider moving out? Like, right now. But that would be, like, for me, it would be dumb to move out. But I feel like the moment that I had that thought, it made me realize how difficult the house was becoming and how, like, hard it was staying at the house. Because for, like, the last 2 years, I have been fairly okay, like, with mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've had, like, problems, but it wasn't, like, anything where I said, okay, well, I'm ready to move out. And before, we had those problems, but I feel like for the last, like, 2 years, it's been pretty decent. And so when I had that thought, it really, like, I realized just how bad it had gotten and how ridiculous it was. Because I don't want to move out. Like, I don't feel like I should. But because it's so difficult, I thought about it.
So you're starting to feel trapped because you don't have any control over your life, and you don't feel ready to move out yet either.
Not really. Everybody thinks I should, but I don't want to.
Okay. Well, I think we're at past 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about your relationship with mom and dad post Shane issue. and that you're feeling kind of frustrated and trapped because of the way that dad tries to control your life and even puts these old rules that don't make sense anymore and strictly enforces them.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was video recording 1 for Melody Charbonneau.